Welcome to the quarantine show starring Mount Zion.
Hello and welcome to this 9th episode of the Quarantine Show starring Mount Zion. I am Pastor Jonathan Harris, the pastor here at Mount Zion United Methodist Church in Central South Carolina. Today we will have the third part of our three-part conversation on race with Peggy, Bodie, and Charity Martin. And so today's episode will focus in on what are some helpful things that white people have done to help with race and racism. What are some unhelpful things that white people sometimes say and do, and how can we be actively participating in getting to a better place racially in our world, in our nation, in our community. And so please take a listen to this final part of the conversation, and thank you for being part of it. What are some helpful things that you've seen white people do, or that you believe white people should do, that would help make the world more accepting across racial lines, as well as more just across racial lines, as well as what are some of the things that people have, again, maybe with good intentions, said and done that were unhelpful?
Me first?
Sure, yeah. Go.
Okay. Something I mentioned the other day was to say hello. And that seems like so simple and not enough, but it's the first step. Even if it is a tiny step, it's the first step. Referring back to those eggshells, sometimes those eggshells are there and sometimes they're not. It's just in our mind as people of color. And by saying hello and just connecting with brown and black people more often as a white person, that helps those eggshells go away. It cuts the tension. You know, if we're walking around the track at the same time and you just throw up your hand to say hello, good afternoon, it brings a sigh of relief that I am acceptable to you, that you chose to speak to me and honor my presence in your presence. So even though it seems like such a tiny thing, it's a big thing. It's a big first step. Saying hello and speaking up. If you see something happening, please don't fall into the bystander effect. Be willing to be that person that's willing to say, hey, that's not okay. Or to step in and intervene in a peaceful way if you do see an incident of racism happening. But yeah, just acknowledge me as an equal, because talking back on that first thought, like a white person's first thought as a black person approaches, there's a person of color's first thought in approaching a white person. You already think they're not going to like you, or you already think they think less of you. So yeah, where did it go? Come back. That mental shift. Even I have to go with, I may have a first thought, but I need to make sure I make my best choice with my second thought. And so that whole saying hello, acknowledging others, being kind, it seems like these little things we learned as children, but we got to bring them back. We got to bring it back to the basics and start at the beginning, because even though this seems like it's been going on for hundreds of years, we're still in the beginning stages. So speak up, say hello, be kind, and make sure the people around you, no matter what color they are, feel welcomed and just as special, because we're all God's children.
Thank you for that. And I know to dig a little deeper in part of your response, something I shared with you in our previous conversation is, there are a lot of folks who are really nice people, really good people, and who, would say, I'm nice to everybody. It doesn't matter how they look. And yet there are some things that still are not just in the world. It's more likely that someone who's a person of color is going to be incarcerated than someone who looks like me. It's more likely that they're going to face employment discrimination or some other form of otherness that leads to inequities in how people live and what people have and what they're able to do. And so just to maybe say a little bit more about when you say speak up, what are some helpful ways that white people can speak up so that they're not just nice and friendly,
Sure.
but actually make a difference?
I would say seeing how you can plug in with your local community. It doesn't have to be, you know, a march in front of the White House with a Black Lives Matter sign, but reaching out in a way that you can start at home and talking to your children and grandchildren about race and making sure you making sure your family knows your heart. Because again, you can be nice and wave and but you can still harbor some feelings or have some uncertainties. So have those discussions and have that, you know, round table talk and bring it up with your children and your adult children and your grandchildren, and let's talk about this and how we treat others. And then I'd say, I mean, it doesn't have to be political as much as just reaching out to your local government and people in positions that can help make changes. Reach out and find a group. I mean, there are so many resources out there, and with social media and things like that, find a group that you can plug into, or be willing to go to lunch with a Black friend and just be like, hey, can I just ask the tough questions, or can we just have a conversation about this like we're having now? And there may be things that you may not know what to talk about. You may not know what to ask, but just by making that move to have small conversations that turn into long conversations and bigger conversations, I feel like is a great movement that you can have on your own towards just better community.
Yeah.
I was saying to Jonathan when we first started, excuse me, that just thinking about it, bringing it up into consciousness is a great first step, you know, bringing it to the top of your brain. And it's like when you buy a new color car, you don't know that the color's out there until you get your own, and then it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened when Leah came into my life. Was I didn't even, you know, I didn't think about it. I'm a nice person. I love charity. You know, I've got Black friends, but to actually make sure that they are taken care of, and what can I do using whatever influence that I might have to make things better for everybody, and not just, you know, children of color, but all children, all people. It just brought it, you know, it just brings it up into consciousness. One of my friends said, we were talking about this one day, and he said, you have a vested interest now. And that's true. I do. I have a vested interest. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to live, but as long as I'm living, I'm going to make sure that, you know, that I do better, and I try to help other people do better. Because it's the right thing to do. And just like you said, Charity, we're all God's children. To think that God prefers one color over another is so absurd, but there are people that really think that and will actually say that in a way.
The same people that think Jesus was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man too.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they know where he's from, but they didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes and where he grew up.
He would have scorched in the desert, that's for sure, if he was.
Yeah.
And Peggy, that might be a good segue into a last question I want to make sure to ask. And maybe this is the most important one, but, you know, as you said, Peggy, somebody said, you know, you have a vested interest. For people who might not see themselves as having a vested interest. So for the white person sitting on their couch watching this, who has always been nice to people, who doesn't have any relatives who are of color, who may not understand what's all the fuss about, why is this a big deal, why should that person consider this a priority, why should this person take a vested interest in this? And that's for both of you, whoever wants to take a stab at it first.
Charity, you want me to go first or you?
If you go right ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know everybody who's from Mount Zion is at least considers themselves a Christian. And from my point of view, talking about Jesus, he was the most inclusive person that's ever lived. I mean, he's the one who was the radical at the time to embrace people that others did not embrace. So if you do nothing but follow his example, that would be justification enough. But from a more practical standpoint, it's that old saying, when the water rises, all boats are going to rise. I mean, you're going to improve everything and every person's life when you can help those that are struggling or need help, not just financially, but emotionally. When we all can be in a better place, then we're all going to have a better life. And so it's up to me and anyone else who is like-minded to do what they can to make life better for everybody. And I'm going to go back to being a follower of Jesus and, taking that radical step of embracing everyone, and doing what I can to make everybody else's life better.
Charity, for you, why should people who aren't gonna worry about walking the dog at night, who aren't worried about somebody assuming they're up to no good if they have their door open at night, why should that person still take an interest and prioritize creating a more racially just and equitable world?
I believe that everything is about community. So you may not have a Black spouse, you may not have a mixed child or even a grandchild, but we still live in community. And every race needs to know and feel that they can be a part of their community fully and completely. So I feel, echoing what Peggy said, as a Christ follower, the most basic, minimal expectation of you is to love others as you love yourself. And so I feel that it benefits everyone in that way. I feel that it benefits everyone by just being welcoming and open-minded and open-hearted to everyone, no matter what. Again, it just boils down to, if you're going to love Jesus, you got to love everybody else. And not a you gotta, you get to. If you love Jesus, you get to love everyone else. So I feel that that's it. It boils down to love and acceptance, and the way to have peace is to not have the division and the drama and all those things that try to separate us. And we should put our energy and effort into things that bring us together, because you never know if you're going to be that white guy on the side of the road that a Black guy pulls over to help you with that flat tire. Is he going to keep on going because he's like, oh, he's probably doesn't want me to help him anyway? Or is he going to stop? Like, we all need each other. Maybe not all at the same time and not all the time, but we all need each other. And so bringing that cohesion just keeps coming into my mind, like just bringing this cohesive, loving, melting pot community mindset is what's going to bring us all together and improve all our lives together.
Well, thank you for that. Both of you, thank you for sharing your experiences. And I know people who don't know you, both of you will be watching. And so thank you for sharing those stories, both with those you know and those you don't. And look forward to hopefully maybe continuing some of these conversations down the road as we seek that more excellent way. So thank you very much. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And if you have any questions that we didn't get to, feel free to make comments and we'll try to figure out a way to follow up on some of those things. Thank you again to Charity and to Peggy for your participation in this conversation over the last few weeks. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about, if you have any ideas for ways that we might be able to work together towards promoting love and acceptance and equality and justice, even just in our community, please respond in the comments section, and we would love to find ways to explore this together. So thank you again for tuning in. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.